Our Earth from above. Dominating this perspective, a vast tract of land sweeps across 2 continents and 11 time zones. A confederation of states, which, despite recent defections, remains the largest political entity on Earth. This land is often described as Russia. Yet, as recent events have brought clearly into focus, Russians are but one of more than 100 ethnic groups in this confederation. A kaleidoscope of 290 million people speaking over 80 different languages. They are the human face of the Soviet Union. The Soviet Far East and the port of Nahodka, the home of the Korets family, one of 6 in the Icebreaker series. A deep water harbour on the Soviet Union's remote eastern coast, Nahodka is the Pacific Ocean terminal of the Trans-Siberian Railway, the thread of steel which ties the Soviet Far East to Moscow and the West. A seaport city, Nahodka is growing in importance as the country's major trading link to the Pacific Rim. Sterile, prefabricated apartment blocks house its expanding population, many descendants of those who came as pioneers to the Soviet eastern frontier. 8-year-old Zhenya Korets is the 3rd generation of his family in Nahodka. They came from the western heartland of Russia, immigrants attracted by the promise of a new life, higher rates of pay, and the freedoms and possibilities associated with being a pioneer. Zhenya's mother, Tanya Korets, works at a city medical center. Tanya is 30 and trained in obstetrics, but currently she works as a medical assistant and general nurse. At one of the 4 separate port complexes strung around Nahodka Bay, her husband, Igor, works as a stevedore. Igor's 31. He's worked here since he left high school and is now a foreman. It's a hands-on position. Igor's been trained to operate all the dockside machinery. Igor, like Tanya, was born in Nahodka of ethnic Russian parents. Their home city is relatively new. Nahodka means discovery. The safe water bay was discovered by the Russians just over 100 years ago, its region annexed from an enfeebled Chinese empire. But Nahodka has experienced most of its growth since the 50s, as the wealth of the Siberian hinterland has been exploited. The port has overtaken the nearby naval center of Vladivostok as the region's prime trading port. Nahodka's rail yards and docks fringe the harbor, with the suburbs and city tucked in behind. At the center of this city of 180,000 people are the graceful buildings of the original settlement, the town's heart, a main shopping precinct. A cosmopolitan port city, Nahodka has few other industries. Its chief claim for foreign recognition is as the Pacific terminus of the Trans-Siberian rail journey. Weekly in winter and daily in summer, trains leave from this station for Moscow, 7 time zones and half a world away. and it will take 7 days to travel the 11,000 kilometers. The epic journey of the Trans-Siberian Express is a stark indication of the remoteness of this far eastern port. Despite this isolation, the lifestyle of these far-flung pioneers shares many similarities with workers in other Soviet cities. The suburban apartment block communities are relatively self-contained. Zhenya's school is but a few steps away from the family's apartment.
Вова, запомнил? Кто запомнил, как называется это? Так медленно, руки поднимаем. Как называется? Бегония какая?
Today, the lessons start with botany. The study material grows along the window ledge in the warmth of the heated classroom. Outside, the early winter temperatures hover around 0. Zhenya Korec is asked if he has indoor plants at home. He says yes, they have some aloe, and it's a plant that's used to heal people. Since Glasnost, many teachers encourage more inquiry and open discussion. Classes today exhibit a spirit free of textbook dogma. But the weather here imposes its own restrictions. In winter, it's too cold to play outside. For breaks between classes, indoor play areas are scattered throughout the school. Although Nahodka's climate forces its children to play indoors during winter, it's one of the few ports in this huge country with ice-free year-round operation. This gives it an important role in Soviet trade. Rolled steel from Japan and essential imports like grain from Australia, the USA or Canada, or beef, butter and wool from New Zealand are moved through Nahodka to destinations all over the Soviet Union. Work at Nahodka's 4 ports goes on round the clock. Eager shifts are coordinated to fit in with Tanya's, so that one of them is always home when Zhenya's school day ends. This is a special time for Zhenya. It gives him the chance to share intimate moments alone with each of his parents.
Дочитал, на чем остановился?
Zhenya tells his mother the latest story he's reading at school. Appropriately for Nahodka, it's a seafaring fable. Dinner tonight will be pelmeni, an oriental dish which is a traditional Russian favorite. Twists of pasta filled with spiced meat or vegetables. Zhenya is used to helping. Many young Russian families today no longer follow the rigid domestic roles of the older generation. The pelmeni look a lot like Italian tortelloni, and they are. The same dish was introduced to Italy from China, along with all pasta, by Marco Polo.
Давай, возьмем твою вешечку. Забрали ее? Ни за что.
As young as he is, Zhenya shows real promise as a chess player. Igor and Tanya plan to enroll him in specialist chess classes. To reach the top, he'll face stiff competition. There are some 3 million ranked chess players in the country.
Молодец, ты так раз сыграем.
А у тебя?
А у меня нет офицеров.
Четура.
What are you afraid of? Says Zhenya. It's your move.
Я все отошел.
I'll eat you, his father tells him. But he's outplayed.
Итак, шах.
Itakshag, Zhenya says. So that's check.
Я вижу.
And Iga concedes that it's checkmate.
Спасибо.
Пожалуйста.
Так это ты проиграл?
Я проиграл ему.
Идемте ужинать.
Нет.
Food is often more plentiful here than in Western Soviet cities. It's a deliberate policy to compensate for their isolation. They also get 50% higher pay in Siberia and the East. However, the Korets apartment is very much the Soviet norm. It comprises this tiny kitchen, one bedroom, a lounge, and a small bathroom. Almost 9 years after Zhenya's birth, the Korets family is still on the waiting list for a larger two-bedroom apartment.
В начале 90 минут.
One-child families are common among ethnic Russians, and the housing situation is seen as an important reason. As a result, the Russian birth rate is one of the world's lowest.
Чуть-чуть дай.
Доброе это из-за того, что взяли эту сою.
Ну не дай, ставь ешь. Ну что так сразу?
Since the revolution, the percentage of the Soviet population living in cities has more than trebled. The government has struggled to meet the need for housing, a problem dramatically compounded by the destruction of 6 million homes during the Second World War. The problem is even worse in Nahodka, where new port development has rapidly expanded the population. Cramped apartment life for the Korets, however, is still an improvement over conditions in some older communal homes where kitchen facilities are shared.
Да, чуть-чуть.
While Zhenya plays with his Russian Mickey Mouse game, Tanya prepares his bed on the family sofa.
Давай, доигрывай.
Despite these less than ideal living arrangements, for Zhenya, going to bed in the lounge means company and a few extra bonuses.
Самым поразительным было то, что на спине этого чудовища сидел человек. Клянусь водопадами, прошептал моряк.
His mum reads him more of the seafaring fable from school.
Эти подземные рудокопы, лихие ребята.
Saturday afternoon, and the spirit of the Russians of Nahodka is evident when Tanya and Iga join Zhenya for a fun day at Zhenya's school. Soviet people talk about elbow touching, the sense of security of having friends at your side. These regular fun days are full of it. There is an element of competition, but the importance of the occasion is in bringing the people together. So the prize is shared between the two teams. Nahodka has one prime purpose: trade. The city's newest facility, a container terminal, joins two other cargo ports across the bay and a dedicated fishing port to handle 25 million tons of cargo a year. Linked to the Trans-Siberian Railway, Nahodka's newest port handles all Pacific container freight heading west across the Soviet Union. The huge port facility also handles exports from Siberia. The city's recent growth has been dramatic. Nahodka is a newly created free economic zone, allowing local control and open foreign investment in the port's development. Such is the scale of Nahodka's export trade that these coal wagons are upended and unloaded 3 at a time in a giant rotating cradle. Siberia is estimated to be so coal-rich that it could supply the Soviet Union's needs for 7,000 years at current rates of use. Another of Nahodka's ports services the Soviet Union's third largest fishing fleet. The Nahodka fishing port handles over 1 million tons of fish a year. Tally clerks check the records of the catch. In the Soviet Union, more than half the workforce are women. Most of the catch is frozen, but some of it arrives in a more traditional form, salted in barrels. The fish are loaded directly to trains at the dockside. And during the loading operation, they're spot-checked by supervisors. The Pacific Fleet operates as ocean fish factories, a number of trawlers serving motherships, which process the catch and pack it at sea. Most of it is for the home market. Joint ventures with companies in the United States, Japan, New Zealand and Singapore provide a variety of fish from waters all over the Pacific Basin. Serving the ports and the city of Nahodka are local community medical centers. At one of these, Korec assists a doctor with a patient being treated for sleeplessness and headaches.
Так, хорошо. Так, сейчас мы вас проверим. Память, внимание. Настройтесь спокойно. Будете делать то, что будет говорить Татьяна Ивановна. А как вы считаете, ну вот, допустим, мы вас выписали, вы сможете?
The doctor explains that she wants to take some tests.
Вот учитывая всю вашу нагрузку,
да, я бы еще побыл, да, дома.
Надо еще пока полечить.
Да, потому что, ну там вот думаю, что 3 дня мне вполне хватит, чтобы.
Так, ну остановимся на
Tanya takes the patient through some perception exercises, designed to judge the effects of stress on concentration and memory. She asks him if he can distinguish the colors of the dots. All medical care in the Soviet Union is free. Soviet attitudes to medicine, too, are liberal and holistic. Doctors are taught to treat the whole person, and not just the particular condition.
Так, отлично.
This man could return to work now. The doctor has told him so, but he'd like a few more days' break. The doctor consents.
Все, пожалуйста, лечитесь, не болейте.
Спасибо.
До свидания.
До свидания.
До свидания.
Free too are other types of care. Igor receives treatment not at a community medical centre, but at a health clinic provided by his workplace.
Кушайте на этой стороне. Не мешает ничего.
These workplace services are not merely for the workers themselves, but also for their families. The range of medical treatment offered at Igor's clinic is wide, a typically holistic Soviet approach to preventative medicine. Treatments range from the conventional, through dietary programming, herbal and homeopathic remedies, to colour therapy. They even provide accommodation for those who need a break from home, along with personal and relationship counselling.
Ну, все, наверное.
This woman, the wife of a port worker, receives sonic pulses for muscle tone.
Ток не надо выводить.
Another patient undergoes ultraviolet radiation to treat a mouth infection. Hydrotherapy, high-pressure water massage, is a popular health treatment too. It stimulates circulation. The thinking appears to be, if it's rigorous, it's good. The clinic's senior doctor is also a qualified acupuncturist. He works in a room that also takes account of colour therapy. For Igor, acupuncture is being used to treat back pain.
Здесь слабый ток.
These facilities for workers provide a security net from the cradle to the workbench. The apartment blocks too, often provided by the workplace, are self-contained communities. The hastily erected blocks are not the best advertisement for Soviet workmanship, but essential amenities, playgrounds and parks, shops, sports halls, schools and daycare centres are provided as integral elements of a housing complex. To try and meet the housing backlog, the apartments are prefabricated, then pieced together on site. Facilities are basic. Lifts are allocated only for blocks above 5 floors. And the pressure to get housing up means finishing touches are usually left till later. And that often means never. The older buildings of the city centre have more style. Although there are few signs to attract customers, these are retail stores. State-operated shops rarely advertise. Until recently, there's been virtually no competition, with standard products and prices. From the outside, there are few clues as to what's sold. Inside, the scene is more familiar. The way the store operates, however, is not. Counter sales or self-service have been the exception, though they are appearing. Traditionally, choosing goods, paying for them, and collecting them are 3 separate operations. There's not much choice, and not much quality either. In fact, most Soviet stores have to test goods for you before you buy them. Soviet people say they were first in space and last in ladies' lingerie. Having chosen your goods, however, you move to a second counter to pay. Finally, receipt in hand, it's back to the first assistant to collect your purchase. On a busy day, such as a rush on scarce items, this can mean queuing 3 times to make a single purchase.
Еще. Еще.
The port where Iga works has its own yacht club, and Iga and some dock worker friends are members. Today, they're sailing in another bay close to Nahodka.
Уже бегать будет. Уже моему уже 5, и уже бегает он все.
There are few constraints on where they can go. Often they undertake a more demanding ocean sail out into the Sea of Japan. It's a welcome escape from the confinement of small apartment living and from the greyness of a Nahodka winter. Nahodka, operating all year round, is a vitally important port for Soviet trade to the Pacific Rim. Siberian timber is a major export. 60% of the supply comes from that area. And the Soviet Union is the world's largest supplier of timber. Its production is equal to the entire output of Canada and Europe combined. Iga, as a stevedore foreman, has responsibility for 20 workers. Ambitious to progress in his job, Iga has sought experience in all aspects of dock work. He's been trained to operate all the key equipment on the docks. A Soviet workplace typically provides employees with far more than just employment. A canteen offering cheap meals is a standard feature, as in many countries. But here, the meals are heavily subsidized. Not all workplaces offer facilities of equal quality, but the services are always better than those available to the general public. Today's lunch at the port canteen, though, is small compensation for Iga. He's missing a special family event at home. First, find your country, then your hometown. The globe is one of Zhenya's presents. The occasion, his 9th birthday.
Кому?
Такс.
Наташа.
Да, не такой подарок.
А ты так
Ой. А что получается? На большой хвост. Ой.
Ну пусть клеит, клей. Где осел? Клей ему хвост. За руки взяли, пошли попробуем.
Finally, Tanya counts the candles.
Так, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
9 candles. And like anywhere else, Zhenya gets to make a wish. But for Zhenya, the real icing on the cake comes later that evening. Igor, now home from work, joins them for a family treat, the local movies. A night out for Russian families is most often an evening at the cinema. After the 1917 revolution, the Soviet government singled out filmmaking as an art form to be cultivated. Today, the Soviet Union has more than half of all the cinemas in the world. Some foreign films are shown, but more often it's one of the 150 or so features made by Soviet studios each year. Tonight, it's a spy thriller set just after the revolution. It's just like James Bond, only the roles are reversed. The sea dominates life in Nahodka. The port boasts 4 colleges for Marine cadets. These students are studying to join the merchant navy. Soviet youngsters, after 8 years at school, are streamed if they want to continue their education. Examinations determine who will receive technical or vocational training and who will continue with general studies and go on to university. The working of a ship's diesel is just part of a comprehensive course for these trainees, who must also learn the ropes along with more other traditional skills. These include the weaving of rope ship fenders and matting. Merchant Marine cadets begin their training at the age of 15. It's the start of a career spending long periods at sea, but the disruption to family life faced by the sailors of Nahodka is obviously not a problem for dock workers like Igor. Living and working ashore means he has time with his family, using the workers' facilities. These exercises are not merely for fitness. Igor suffers from back pain and works out in order to strengthen his back. Zhenya is keen too, but finds some of his dad's workout a pain in the neck. Dad's advice? Don't put your neck against the bar. Try again. A typical family night at home. Television and Russian tea. Traditionally, Russians make up a very strong brew and dilute it for each serving with hot water from the samovar. Tonight, Zhenya is in a tetchy mood. He describes how the school tells him to write the number 9, from the bottom up. Tanya's method is wrong, he says. For all their isolation, the Korets have a number of television channels, both from Moscow by satellite and locally from Vladivostok. The state values television's role in binding together the country's far-flung communities. state has also used other means of holding the country together. The political methods of the past are now changing, but key dates every year were used to remind Soviet citizens of their revolutionary heritage. Here in Nahodka, before the failed Moscow coup of 1991, workmen complete preparations for the city's annual celebration of the anniversary of the 1917 revolution. At these celebrations, the first event was to be the unveiling of a new statue of Lenin in the town hall square. For civic leaders, such an achievement used to be a proud moment. Nahodka had saved for 4 years to buy their tribute to the founder of the Soviet Union. Large commemorative statues were a mark of a town's development. Today, many of the statues are being torn down. Already, this new statue, Lenin in repose, was not without controversy. Traditionalists would have had him on his feet, exhorting the masses. Perhaps the founder of the socialist state is reflecting on the dramatic changes his country is now undergoing. Many Soviet citizens still salute Lenin, but there are now sharp divisions between a dwindling old guard and new reformers. They see Lenin today as an idealist, the founder of a failed experiment. At the docks, they're awaiting the arrival of one of Nahodka's Pacific fishing fleet. The edgy excitement of the crew's wives and children is understandable. The ship has been at sea for 6 months. Its return is just in time for the vacation marking the revolution. As compensation for the separation from their families, Nahodka's ocean fishermen receive higher than average wages. And as well, there are the gifts and goods brought home from foreign ports. Prior to the 1991 coup, the marking of the revolution was a largely political event, even in schools. The day before the 2-day vacation, pupils would put on their best uniforms and their best behavior. The The day's lessons would focus on the events of the revolution, its history and its motives. The children would learn the songs and poems of the period, often stories about pre-revolutionary bosses who didn't work but were very rich.
Хозяин завода был Данилов, он не работал, спины не гнул, а жил он, ах, как богато.
Вот это и есть те капиталисты.
On this one day a year, the class would dedicate its time to the history of the socialist ideal. Nowadays, the Revolution anniversary parades have largely disappeared. Previously, the annual celebrations in Nachodka followed the pattern of those in distant Moscow. Here, before the recent dramatic changes, Nachodka gathers for what was to be one of the last of their Revolution Day parades. Under the dogged gaze of political leaders, at this time still party faithfuls, Nahodka's citizens assemble for the parade in the town hall square, in early winter temperatures which hover around zero. Yet despite the weather, the people are obviously intent on having a good time. A fanfare heralds the start of the official speeches and the parade. This formal part of the ceremony was always, in fact, quite brief in this town. A float depicting the naval vessel Aurora leads the parade. It was the first of the Tsar's fleet to turn against the regime and side with the people in 1917. These glorifications of historic communist ideals today seem out of step. But the official idealism continued undiluted until the recent sudden upheavals discrediting the Communist Party. The parades, however, were also always a chance to express some civic pride. After the official ritual, the people would join in. They would march in groups representing their schools, clubs, or work organizations. Eager, a representative of his port workers would carry the banner of their group. But many would not come at all. For a lot of citizens, the real significance of Revolution Day was the two-day vacation that marked it. And that always started with a party.
По 3 раза по русскому обычаю.
Как здесь помаду мы так всегда.
Ну тебя не буду помаду мазать. Чуть-чуть. Да?
Как всегда помаду.
А теперь умываться будете.
Как всегда помаду.
Celebrations with family and friends usually mark the beginning of this two-day vacation. Toasts are made. The table is set with caviar, sweets and salmon roe. And typically for Russians, a good measure of Soviet champagne. Unlike inland cities and smaller landlocked towns, Nahodka enjoys a more plentiful supply and a greater variety of foods, from both its trading advantages and the fertile land of its surrounding rural district. The champagne is more special. It's imported from Moscow. For Zhenya, however, it's only Bulgarian fruit juice.
Не давали.
Я бы генерал, был сидеть крылья, есть конфеты, мороженое и подписывать бумаги.
For the second day of the vacation, the Korets spend time with friends in the hills outside Nahodka. Here they have a dacha, an out-of-town cottage. Soviet city families of even modest means usually have the use of a dacha in the countryside as a weekend escape from city stress. In this early winter break, it's very cold. But since their dacha is only a small shed, they cook and eat outside. They'll make a popular Soviet dish from the Republic of Georgia, shashlik. Tanya and her friend Luba have their own variation. They've marinated the meat in champagne.
Вот так. Еще разочек.
Luba's husband Misha has his own ingenious method for dampening down the flames. But this isn't champagne, it's water. Soviet families often cultivate the plots of land at their dachas to grow their own fruit, vegetables and flowers. They also pick wild berries in the forest. A contemporary proverb says, nothing in the shops, everything on the table.
А я лед вон достал.
На шампанском есть, по-моему.
Было бы это каждую неделю.
Tanya and Igor's dacha is just one of many in the wooded hills outside Nahodka, providing the contrast of an outdoor life.
Отойди, сейчас я выхожу. Оп, поля!
Игорь, снесет!
The Pacific coast home of the Korets family is half a world away from their Russian family roots. Their parents were encouraged to come here as pioneers, opening up the Russian Far East in much the same way as the American pioneers opened up the American West. As second-generation residents of Nahodka, Igor and Tanya also see themselves as pioneers of this region. It's a part of the Soviet Union of growing importance, a point of contact with the powerful nations and economies of the Pacific Rim. It's still remote, but it's a place founded on the future.
Можно берите, переживайте сюда.
Pioneers are not so bound by the rules of convention. They enjoy the freedom of creating a new life. It's these aspects of the pioneer that the Korec family of Nahodka share with the descendants of all other immigrants who have ever sought a new path in a new land.